Hello, I'm Niels Christensen. Welcome to Kitco News and our continuing coverage of the Minds and Money Online Connect Virtual Mining Conference. Today, we're talking science fiction versus reality of space mining. So joining me today is Robert Mueller, Senior Technologist at the NASA Kennedy Space Center. Let's just jump right in this. Space mining, fascinating topic to discuss. How realistic is it? How far away are we from, mining asteroids and mining ore on the moon?
Well, thanks for the question. That's a really important distinction. We have a lot of resources in space, but are the resources actually reserves? That's the question. Are they economically accessible? And today, I'll be honest and I'll say, no, they are not economically accessible. And especially when people say we're going to mine the asteroids and bring the resources back to Earth and bring platinum to Earth and make a fortune. This is all kind of skewed thinking. It's not very well thought out. We don't think that we will be bringing resources back to Earth very soon, because the economic value of it, the economic proposition is not there. If we need more resources, we'll open more mines on Earth, and that will be more economical. However, there are a lot of resources in space, and once you get out of the Earth's gravity well, then you have energetically achieved most of what you need to achieve to travel anywhere in the solar system. So if you keep the resources in space, then those resources become the beginning of the bootstrapping process for starting a solar system economy. So if you think of resources in space, think of the resources being used in space, but not on Earth. And then the products of what you make by using the resources in space can then be used back on Earth. And so that's not very intuitive. For example, if you made solar cells in space and you collected solar energy in space and beamed the energy back to Earth, that would be a product. But nothing would have come back to Earth other than energy. Everything would have stayed in space. So this is actually a non-intuitive question that you asked, because yes, we will be doing space mining, but no, we will not be bringing those materials back to Earth very soon. However, in the long run, we might, but in the short run, we think we'll be using those resources in space outside of the Earth's gravity well.
Mm-hmm. So are we there technically? Like, could we do it now, or do we need to see bigger advances in technology? Like, the stuff that you're proposing, I mean, is it hypothetical, or is some of it based in reality?
It's not hypothetical. We can do it. The technologies exist today to do that. But the question is, what's the reliability? Can we go for 5 years with this existing technologies, or will it break down after a week? And today I would say we'll break down after a week. We need more technology development. This is a very harsh environment. You're going to a place, for example, if you go to the moon, it's minus 175 degrees Celsius at night. It's plus 129 degrees Celsius in the daytime. If you move from a shadowed region to a lit region, you have the thermal delta, the difference between the hot and cold temperature, which creates a coefficient of thermal expansion stress where it will literally tear your equipment apart. And so it's in a hard vacuum. There's no air on the moon. There's steep slopes. It's covered with crushed rock, which is like crushed glass. Think of talcum powder that's like crushed glass. It gets into everything, gets into your machinery, destroys your seals, destroys your bearings. It's a very, very harsh environment. So I would say, yes, the technologies do exist, but they still need development in order to have the reliability we need.
What kind of resources are you looking at in space? I mean, is it like you say, it's meant to be used in space? I like what you're saying, bootstraps, sort of the beachfront of space exploration. So what kind of minerals are going to be important and that you're looking at sort of processing?
Well, we think it's actually more about energy than materials. So in the beginning, you'll need energy, and you'll need energy to travel across the solar system, and that will give you accessibility. So if you think of it like a solar system highway, a highway system, just like we have here on Earth, you have the highway system that enables transportation, and the transportation enables the economy, and then goods and services can flow through that economy with the transportation network. But that transportation network needs fueling stations. And so we think that in the beginning, it's not going to be minerals or metals that we use. It will be chemical propulsion. And the best form of propellants that you can use for chemical propulsion are hydrogen and oxygen. You have a specific impulse of about 450 seconds. That's what the space shuttle used, was hydrogen and oxygen. The exhaust gases that you saw coming out of the space shuttle were steam, water. So if we can find the water in the solar system and electrolyze it using solar energy, now we have hydrogen and oxygen. If we have hydrogen and oxygen, we have the basis of a transportation network. Now we can travel across the solar system using the hydrogen and oxygen. And in terms of energy, we can go almost anywhere in the inner solar system using the water. Now the question is, where is the water? Most of the water is in the outer solar system beyond the asteroid belt, because when the solar system formed, it was very hot close to the sun, and these volatiles did not condense close to the sun. They condensed further out from the sun where it was cooler. So most of the volatiles, like water, are in the outer solar system. However, we do have water in the inner solar system as well. For example, Earth has water. It's not really clear why Earth has so much water, but we do have it. And the moon has water too. The water is in the form of ice, and the ice has collected at the North Pole and the South Pole. If we can go to the moon and mine the water ice, now we can use that water ice for drinking water, for life support, for radiation protection, and for propellants. If we become really efficient at mining water ice on the moon, we'll have a surplus of water. That surplus can be exported from the moon to the propellant depots, the gas stations on the solar system highway. And so now we have a source of water on the moon, and we can travel throughout the solar system with that water. And as we travel, we find more water, and we set up more gas stations, and that enables the whole solar system economy.
Okay, so we do have the technology, maybe not the best technology. Aside from that, what's the hurdle to get us into space? You know, what's the hurdle to get us to this space economy?
The hurdle is will. It's political will to do this. It's not economically feasible right now for private industry to do this by themselves. It's just like the aviation industry. After World War I, there were a lot of pilots that were unemployed, and they had nothing to do because there was no industry, but they were highly skilled individuals, and the aviation industry did exist, but they didn't have a purpose. So the government stepped in and set up the airmail system, and now all these pilots were employed. In fact, Charles Lindbergh was an airmail pilot, and he crossed the Atlantic. So this shows you how the government has a role in spurring innovation. The government set up the airmail system, and you know how that turned out. The history of aviation is changed the way the human species lives. So in a very analogous way, the government needs to step in and support this expansion of humanity into the solar system, because the return on investment for humanity is just so good. If you have a little bit of investment capital up front to start bootstrapping this whole process, we will have a huge return on investment. And by the way, the nation or entity that does it first will have a competitive advantage through exponential growth. So it's absolutely of huge strategic value to go into space and find the resources.
So last year, actually, it was really interesting. I covered a report from Smithsonian Astrophysical Conservatory, talking about how we should develop space mining, and they actually said that we should actually have 85% of it should be off limits. Only use about 1/8 of the resource in space. Should we be having these philosophical questions now, or is it too early? How do we properly develop the resources and this solar system economy, do you think?
I think first of all, you need to consider the scale of the resources. And of course, it's always worrying that we'll do damage and that we will cause harm. But I think that's a false argument, because we have such a vast amount of resources that you simply can't imagine it. In the solar system, which is a tiny little piece of the universe, we have vast amounts of resources, billions of times more than we have on Earth. Earth is very resource constrained. If you put it in that context, then the mining that we're proposing to do is simply negligible. It's not even visible or measurable when you consider the vastness of resources that are available. So it's kind of an emotional argument. It's a fear of the unknown. And the only way to get rid of the fear of the unknown is to quantify it and have some hard data. And then all these arguments just evaporate.
So when do what timelines are you looking at? I mean, do you is it, mining on the moon in 10 years, in 20 years? I mean, is there any targets that NASA has that you guys are working towards?
Absolutely. This is very feasible. And we have orbital data from the moon already indicating that there is water ice at the poles. This is very, very good data from orbit with highly sophisticated instruments like neutron spectrometers. And we also have one data point where we impacted a rocket stage into the south pole of the moon, and the resulting ejecta plume, which was measured on orbit with mass spectrometers, actually found 5.5% water ice that is in the material that was ejected. So we have very good evidence that there is water ice at the poles of the moon. And so we can do this. But the technology must be developed and the missions need to be funded. We think it's realistic that within 10 years, we'll have a plant operating at the south pole of the moon to get oxygen and hydrogen from water, ice, ore that has been mined from the surface of the moon. In 2026, we're going to have a pilot plant operating between 2026 and 2028 will be a pilot plant. This will prove the concept at a sub-scale, a small scale. Once we've worked out all the bugs and all the issues, in the 2030 timeframe, we'll have a full-scale operating plant making propellant, and then we can send a rocket to land on the moon, a lander, and it will land, and then it will not have to bring the propellant for the journey home with it. It can refuel on the moon and then come back to Earth or go to another destination, such as an asteroid or Mars. So these things are very feasible, but the technology must be developed and the missions must be funded in order for this to happen.
Robert, this has been a fantastic conversation. I'm excited to see what the future holds in the next 10 years when it comes to the space mining. Thank you very much for sharing your thoughts and the projects that you're developing. This is really, really interesting conversation. Thank you very much for your time.
Thank you. I hope to talk to you again in the future.
In 10 years, when you're ready to launch onto the projects on the moon.
Absolutely.
Thank you for watching Kitco News. For all the coverage at Minds and Money Online Connect, visit kitco.com. Stay safe and stay healthy.